Good morning to everyone and welcome to this event, the Global Energy Challenges Solutions through Dialogue. I would like to start by thanking Repsol for hosting this meeting in its campus and for its sponsorship and always support. And also the Spanish Committee of the WPC Energy for the organization along with Enerclub. I would like to thank also Mr. Jassim Al-Shirawi, Secretary General of the International Energy Forum. Jassim, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I think it's the first time you come to our event, so I hope it will be the first of many more to come. I would also like to especially thank Mr. Keisuke Sadamori, IEA Director for Energy Markets and Security, for joining us. Keisuke, you have been with us many times, so welcome back. Also, Luis Cabra, Pedro Miras, Ivan Martin, thanks to you too, to the WPC Energy members, and to all of you attending this event today. Enerclub's relationship with the WPC Energy goes back far in time. It was during the celebration of the 19th Congress in Madrid, and some of you, I've learned, were here in 2008. And then ties were strengthened between the two organizations, and they continue to grow. Every year, we hold an event with WPC Energy, where we always try to bring together speakers who can give us the international perspective of what is going on in the energy arena worldwide. The international perspective is very important for Enerclub. Energy systems are not isolated, they are interconnected. Policy decisions in one country can have global effects, so to have this global perspective is really useful to ensure that the energy challenges we will be discussing today are properly addressed. Events like this one gives us the opportunity to come together, share knowledge, and also join forces across borders. Nowadays, we are living a huge transformation in the energy sector. We face important challenges. Energy security is clearly a priority. In a world of energy crisis, geopolitical uncertainties, growing demand, and emerging energy flows. Decarbonization, since we must accelerate our efforts to reduce emissions, to fight climate change, and protect ecosystems and biodiversity. The access to energy for all, in physical terms, but also in terms of affordability and competitiveness. That is being a huge issue today, especially in the EU. This challenge remains a central part of the present and future of energy and of the whole energy transition. We cannot forget innovations, including digitalization, artificial intelligence, and new energy technologies that are transforming the sector. Integrating these technologies and turning them into real-world solutions will require building the necessary infrastructures, establishing strong regulatory frameworks, and implementing long-term policies. Last but not least, we must ensure social acceptance and a fair and inclusive energy transition so that no country or region is left behind. The energy transition is not a one-size-fits-all journey. Regions differ in their starting points, resources, and capabilities. However, no single country can tackle these challenges together, alone. We need to be together. Dialogue between governments, industries, and civil society is essential to overcome these challenges, identify the most effective solutions, and seize new opportunities ahead. This is precisely what we are trying to do here together today. So I hope you enjoyed the event, and let me conclude by thanking the whole Spanish committee for their hard work, to Repsol, to all speakers and moderators, and to all of you for attending this event. I hope you enjoy it, and I would like now to give the floor to Ángel Bautista. Thank you.
Hello all, it's a pleasure to see you all here, and we welcome you to this event, both in my capacity as chairman of the WPC Energy Spanish Committee and as Director of Institutional Relations at Repsol. And welcome to Madrid. It's the first day we don't have rain for a long time, so it's a nice day today. I'm going to touch base a little, pointing out some global challenges of the energy landscape, and being a little more specific about what's happening in Europe. That's the place where we are. First, some words about the WPC. WPC Energy is an institution that was founded more than 90 years ago. its main objective being the promotion of sustainable management and use of the world's energy resources. The organization, chaired by our friend Pedro Miras, recently unveiled a new strategy that reinforces its commitment to closely monitoring the developments across the energy landscape. As part of that plan, and this is very relevant, our flagship Congress will be celebrated every 2 years instead of 3 as previously scheduled, which is, I believe, it's a good measure. Also, as part of this new strategy, the organization embraces right now every form of energy, convinced that every source and technology must be leveraged to responsibly meet the planet's growing energy needs. This strategic shift actually is essential and aligns very well with Repsol's multi-energy approach. Well, as you know, energy plays a critical role in shaping the global economy and international relations and the well-being of citizens everywhere. Over the last decade, a big part of the world, especially OECD and more especially the European Union, we have forgotten about security of supply. We have subordinated competitiveness to other goals and probably amplifying the effects of the energy crisis that we've suffered. World's energy demand is still growing and will continue to grow. That is why sometimes we speak about energy addition and not only about energy transition. It's crucial to recognize that energy consumption is still largely driven by traditional sources. The share of conventional fuels like coal, gas, and oil has hardly decreased in the global energy mix since the 70s. It's still around like 80% of the global mix and will continue to represent an important percentage under any future scenario. In the transport sector, still 95% of everything that we move in the world of this energy demand is still driven by liquid fuels. The US has somehow a more pragmatic, has had more pragmatic energy policies, but that has not been an obstacle to actually achieve gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions reductions comparable or even and even higher than the European Union. And they also achieved much lower energy costs. Energy in Europe is 2.5 times, electricity basically, more expensive than in the US. In Europe, it's more expensive than the US. And by the way, a technology that is banned in Europe, like fracking, was actually a technology that saved Europe during the energy crisis that arose from the attack of Russia to Ukraine. Recently, the European Union has begun to show a small but positive shift, reintroducing energy security, competitive pricing, and the protection of its strategic industries into the debate. However, years of well-intentioned efforts to prioritize specific technologies, and mainly electrification, and abandoning the principle of technological neutrality has increased our dependencies, driven up prices, and delivered emissions reductions comparable to or smaller than those achieved by the United States. It's worth noting that here in Europe, we're just right now 6% of global emissions. We should continue with our decarbonization efforts, but we cannot continue to sacrifice our competitiveness and an industry to try to solve alone a problem that is global. Over the last 15 years, the rate of electrification in the European Union has not changed. It's around like 23%, so it means 77% still comes from other sources. Hopefully, this share will increase, and hopefully it will increase with renewable energies input. Energy companies like Repsol, like Moeve, like BP, Spanish companies that are in the oil and gas areas, and others, we are doing a dual effort. We are continuing to produce the hydrocarbons that the world needs in the most sustainable manner, while investing in new low-carbon technologies like renewable fuels, CCS, biogas, green hydrogen, or even renewable electricity generation. I'm going to stop a little on refining. The refining industry is the backbone of European Union energy security, and it's critical for our strategic autonomy, essential to other sectors like chemicals, automotive, aviation, and defense. Yet, it has not been considered strategic till now. This is a paradox. Since 2009, one of every 4 or 5 refineries, around 20% of the overall capacity in Europe, has closed. We're beginning a new dialogue with the European Union, hoping to reverse this trend. Spain, in particular, has the most competitive refining industry in the whole of Europe. Furthermore, there are other aspects vital to improving the competitiveness of the European industrial sector. Just a few surgical changes could make a very big difference in our regulation. For example, the European Commission proposal to revise the CO2 emission standards for cars and vans is a meaningful recognition of the role that renewable fuels can play in the carbonization of road transport. It's a step in the right direction, but it's clearly insufficient. Last week, Canada also took a step in that direction by lifting the ban of the internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035. Renewing the vehicle fleet is the most effective short-term way to cut emissions right now. Swapping old cars, in Spain the fleet average is around 14, 15 years old. It used to be like 8. For a new one, regardless of the type of the technology used, while advancing combustion engines efficiency, promoting the use of renewable fuels, and expanding electric vehicles could make a big difference. Just new cars, not old cars. Additionally, the European Union simplification packages and the revision of several industrial and climate policies are without a doubt a positive step forward from the European Commission. It's a preliminary step and not enough. We should also rationalize in Europe the cost of CO2, which is raising production costs and making Europe a less attractive location for industrial investment and operations. With energy costs this high, the CO2 price no longer incentivizes efficiency, just accelerates relocation of our industry. It's also essential to move away from complex siloed regulation and improve global coordination across climate, industrial, and transportation policies, while upholding the 2 core principles, technological neutrality and a value chain approach. Renewable fuels. This is an area where the European Union can do much more, in line with the efforts made in Asia, the US, or Brazil. Today, liquid fuels supply around 97% of the European transport energy needs. Increasing the production and use of renewable fuels not only strengthens strategic autonomy and competitiveness, but supports well-paid, stable jobs, development in rural economies, and promotes the circular economy. Again, the three refiners here in Spain, Repsol, Moeve, and BP, are already putting these technologies into practice. In conclusion, I hope that this event and the solutions identified today will help us navigate the complex challenges ahead and ensure that a future that balances energy security, economic growth, and environmental sustainability. And then now the important part of the event. Our first speaker today is Mr. Yassim Al-Shirawi, which I met yesterday. We had a wonderful conversation during our dinner. He's Secretary General of the International Energy Forum, whose term began in January the 1st, 2025. The International Energy Forum was established to strengthen cooperation, confidence, and transparency across global energy markets. And the forum enables open, balanced, and evidence-based engagement at a time when energy systems are more interconnected and interdependent than ever. It brings together actors with different starting points, including producers, consumers, and transit countries across all regions and levels of development. This organization works closely with the International Energy Agency and the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, the OPEC, and with the 7 partner organizations, APEC, Eurostat, GECF, the American Energy Agency for Energy, OLADE, OPEC, and the United Nations SD, in the Joint Organizations Data Initiative also. Yassim, again, thank you very much for being with us today and you have now the floor. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, old and new, good morning to you. It's such a pleasure to be with you here today, and I'd like to thank the organizers, WC Energy, for inviting us for this important forum, and also to thank Repsol for their hospitality and for hosting this event. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to give this keynote speech. The IEF and WBC Energy have excellent relationship together. We work very closely together, and we are very much aligned in our mission and mandate. We attend our events jointly and other events as well organized by others. And in April this year, we're going to have our ministerial meeting on the 26th of April, back-to-back with the WBC Energy Congress, which will start also on the 27th of April. But on personal level, I have very constructive and positive engagement with WBC since 15 years ago. Before assuming the job of Secretary General of the IEF, I used to work in the Ministry of Oil in Bahrain, and before that in the petroleum company. And I think it was, my memory serves me right, it was 2010 that we have Joseph Tooth, who came to Bahrain to meet with our minister, but unfortunately, the last minute, the minister had some engagement, and he had to allow me to meet with Mr. Tooth. And Mr. Tooth explained to me more about WBC Energy, or WBC it used to be called then. And I made a recommendation to the minister to join WBC, and we became a member since then. And I assumed the secretary of the Bahrain National Committee for WBC since then till, I think, end of 2021. And I had attended many congresses and events for WBC. So today, my speech will, first I will give a brief introduction on the IEF mandate and mission, and then second, I will share some reflections on the global energy challenges and dialogue issues and solutions that we have reflected in our recent meetings. So the IEF is an intergovernmental organization. We have nearly 70 member countries, and we provide a neutral and inclusive platform for dialogue between producers and consumers of energy. Our mandate covers all forms of energy, oil, gas, renewable, nuclear, and we also work on many aspects related to the energy industry. And we also have an industry advisory council that consists of companies that are working in the energy sector. And as Angel mentioned, we have also, we coordinate the Joint Organization Data Initiative, JODI, with many organizations that were mentioned. The IEF is committed to strengthening evidence-based policy dialogue through enhanced data transparency and cross-border collaboration. Our convening power ensures perspective all regions and sectors are heard, from OECD and non-OECD, the G20, BRICS, and economies, global North and global South. So we cover the whole regions. Our dialogue include ministerial meetings that we hold every 2 years, and we also have a trilateral program with the IEA and OPEC, where we hold events. Recently, on 4th of April, we had our Symposium of Energy Outlooks that we host in Riyadh in collaboration with the IEA and OPEC. And it was a very successful event, and Pedro Meras has kindly joined us in this meeting as a keynote speaker. And before that, on the 3rd of February, we had our IAC meeting, the Industry Advisory Council meeting, and Pedro was also part of that. So our focus as the IEF covers energy security and data and market transparency and orderly and just energy transition. These are the areas that we focus on, and we work on also sustainable fuels and sustainable energy for the energy sector. And I spoke about the trilateral program that we have with the IEA and OPEC. And this is an example of the meeting that we had in OPEC, hosted by OPEC. This was in April last year, and it was on physical and financial market interactions between various stakeholders of the energy industry. This is as part of the meetings that we hold, and these are the key takeaways that the meeting has covered, and we alerted governments on the fact that upstream investments remains essential as the world will need more affordable energy, and decline rates are steepening, and reserve replacement has been the lowest level in years. So the IEF will provide more in-depth analysis on these worrisome trends and future reports on investment energy and energy security and market stability and fast changing market settings. We also had a meeting last October in Paris, and this was hosted by the IEA, and it was on a symposium on gas and coal market outlooks. And the findings of these meetings are covered here. I'm not going to go through them in length, but this presentation will be available for you to go through it. Because of the limited time, I will not be able to cover every point. But it was about natural gas, and and emphasize that natural gas will continue to grow, but with regional variations. LNG supply is diversifying and expanding and creating new supply and demand dynamics. Global coal demand reached an all-time high in 2025, though demand growth may stabilize due to gas to coal substitution and continued advances in renewable and nuclear. We also had the joint the symposium, which is part of the trilateral program with IEA and OPEC. We had recently, it was last week, on the 4th February, we had the Symposium of Energy Outlooks, which was a very successful event, and was attended by more than 300 people representing government officials and industry leaders and academia and think tanks and many stakeholders who are involved in the energy industry. And we were blessed that His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman Al Saud, the Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia, has attended, and he gave a keynote speech in this event. The world will need more energy and all forms of energy. And this is due to population growth and urbanization, digitalization, industrialization, and also the AI revolution. So we talk about the population. As you can see, many of the scenarios by many agencies are very much aligned on the demographic trends and the growth of the population. So we're going to have approximately 200 billion people that will be increased by 2050 from the 8 billion people that we have as population of the world. And as you can see, the organizations are very much aligned in their projections of the trends for population growth, and they are very much close to each other. And I think the difference is 137 million people only. But if we look at the projections of the primary energy demand, this slide shows that there is a growing divergence between the organizations and agencies that make these scenarios. And as you can see, the divergence is approximately the size of the energy demand today. So you see that many also ambitious projections show that demand declines, which is of course a hypothetical and real world. The world will need more energy, so the demand will keep growing. But some of these scenarios, because of net zero projections, they show that the demand will increase. But if we look at many of the organizations, they have moved to, over the years, continue to revise their projections of the global primary energy demand, and the demand is showing that it's an upward trend rather than a decline in demand. Meanwhile, the differences in energy demand per capita across all compared scenarios reflect large energy investment needs to overcome inequality. If you look on the left, the Western world has the highest per capita energy consumptions, where are areas like in the global south, like India and Africa, are way below maybe the median for all the globe. And this shows that marks critical energy access challenge, and future energy demand growth requires substantial energy and investment to overcome the global divisions. And energy poverty and energy access are very important aspects in the energy domain, and it's an area of focus for IEF and many organizations like CEWPC, Energy, IEA, and other organizations. In order to reduce uncertainty for investment and for investors and investment, IEF has identified a median trajectory across all published outlooks to capture the key trend emanating from the scenarios that are shown here. And hopefully that median, considered by investors and other multilateral organizations, may remove and eliminate the noise and the outliers to provide a signal that will enhance predictability and boost investor confidence. We noted that the new scenario narratives look beyond emissions and resilience growth, and through views of population growth align, and this is just the conclusions, and those views of population growth align, total primary energy demand projection differ strongly. Demographic and other market trends conflict with energy demand declines and ambitious scenarios. The per capita energy demand gap marks a critical energy access challenge. Okay, I talked about the dialogue meetings that we have and findings, and this just we do have many areas of that we cover. And as Angel mentioned, transport demand is a very important aspect of the energy domain. And we held last year thought leader roundtable on sustainable energy transport and transport demand, and it was attended by many experts and many industry and government officials. And this, as I said, we also publish reports on the same, and this in 2024, the IEF published a report on transportation and mobility energy demand outlook. And these are the findings of the report and the dialogue that we held on this thought leader roundtable. As I said, this will be available so you can go through it, but due to the time limitation, I'm not going to be able to cover it in length. We also hold meetings with the European Union and European Commission, and we had the 6th IEF EU Energy and Climate Day. It was held in Riyadh in last May, and hopefully this year also, probably in October, we'll hold the 7th IEF EU Energy and Climate Day. And these are the findings, the key takeaways from that IEF EU Energy and Climate Day. Also, we have last November held 2 events, one on the carbon management and hydrogen market roundtable, and also before that we had also a roundtable on energy transparency and data. And as I said, the data is very important for the energy industry. And as we coordinate the JODI, Joint Organization Data Initiative, along with many organizations that Enkhel has mentioned, like the United Nations Statistical Division, Eurostat, OPEC, the IEA, OLADI in Latin America, APEC in Asia Pacific, and the gas exporting countries forum. And JODI has been, for oil, has been for over 20 years. It was actually launched in 2005 for JODI oil, and JODI gas was introduced in 2014, so it's 11 years old. And we have plans to expand the joint organization data initiative with our partners in order to maybe include other metrics like clean energies, renewables, and even probably on critical minerals. And this is the report that we published last year in November on building carbon management and hydrogen markets. And we also held 2 events on critical minerals roundtable and the GCC opportunities. It was held in Riyadh in February last year and December. And this is the report that we also published recently on critical minerals. And these reports are available on our site. You can load them and view them. One thing that I would like to highlight in the remaining time that I have is the Industry Advisory Council. This is a very important platform for dialogue between industry and government, and also academia and think tanks and other stakeholders of the energy industry. And we have last year have kind of formalized the IAC. Now we have over 45 companies that are part of the IAC, and we welcome more companies to join the IAC. As you can see, Repsol is one member of our IAC, and we value their positive contribution and engagement. And these companies, they cover the whole spectrum of energy and oil, gas, renewables, and also service companies and companies involved in hydrogen and clean energies and carbon management. And we do hold a number of meetings a year, like 1 or 2 meetings a year for the Industry Advisory Council. Last summer, we held a meeting in Paris for the IAC, and it was also well attended. And as I said, last week we held on the 3rd of February, we had also an IAC meeting and it was also well attended. And this is a picture of the last week's meeting, which was held at our headquarters in Riyadh. And these are the takeaways of the IAC meeting. And I think this sums up, my contributions today, and I will be happy to even engage with you later and give more information on the IEF and its mission and mandate. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day. Thank you.
General of the IEF, thank you very much. In the last meeting in Riyadh of the International Advisory Board, someone said that the energy sector is asking for stability, and the war is providing uncertainty, and IEF is providing the dialogue in the energy sector to reach what we all ambition to have, no? So let me continue with the dialogue, and let me invite to the floor from IEA, Keisuke Sadamori. He's the Director of Energy Markets and Security, and from Fields Europe, Luis Cabra, who is the chairman of the organization. So. Good. So we have two fantastic panelists that cover two institutional visions, Fields Europe and the International Energy Agency. And as Secretary General Yassin Al-Sawiri was mentioning before, I think there are two things that are really important that came out of those meetings last year. The first one is the world's need more energy, and we saw the growth in population and growth in energy demand, for more people, with less emissions, and from multiple sources. So that's a huge challenge. And at the same time, we want to have security of supply that has become the new objective, and also at the same time, access to energy. And we saw the difference of demand per capita in different parts of the world. So we have in front of us a huge challenge. But if we go to Europe, in Europe, we need to balance the urgent energy transition that we are pursuing, at the same time with a need to keep industry competitive and energy affordable. So again, a lot of trade-offs. So we are living in a world of trade-offs, and dialogue is going to be very much needed, no? So in order to do that, I mean, the plan for today is that I will ask each of you some questions, and then we engage in a dialogue. We can have a debate, no? So we are going to address certain controversial issues, no? Like scenarios that we saw the huge difference between the different scenarios, no? And then we will finish up with some questions from the audience, no? So we hope to cover that in the next 1 hour, no? So starting with IEA, with Mr. Keisuke Sadamori. The highlights of the recent speeches or declaration from the IEA has been the surging of electricity demand because of, we are talking about artificial intelligence as a demand driver, but we also are talking about air conditioning, so AC and IA, as another driver of demand, especially in emerging countries. You have talked a lot and you are pushing a lot the imperative to upgrade grids and the flexibility mechanism. And you have been also talking about the importance of LNG for market stability. So with that, with those ideas in mind, let me ask you the first question around electrification, because electrification is a key theme for IEA. You have said recently that expanding renewables alone is not enough without grid and flexibility investment. Which are the biggest bottlenecks to achieve that?
First of all, thank you very much to the organizer, the WPC, and also Spanish Energy Committee, and also the IEF, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you very much for including the IEA in this very important and interesting event. Yes, so as Mr. Al-Chilawi mentioned, that the whole energy demand is increasing and will continue to increase, and this is particularly the case with the electricity. IEA released the Electricity 2026 report just last week, and it shows that electricity is growing faster than the entire energy demand. Electricity is is expected to grow from now to 2030 at the rate of 3.6% per year. So this is much faster than the entire energy demand growth. And this is driven by expanding industries, electrification of transport like the EVs, but also the increasing number of air conditioners, because the per capita electricity consumption in the developing world is much slower, and they're in the tropical zones, so they will need the more air conditioners. And so those elements, and also the data centers and the AI demand. So all in all, and also what's notable is that advanced economies, like the OECD countries, their electricity demand was not growing, was in stagnation in the past decade, but it will finally return to growth in the coming years. So all in all, we will need massive amount of electricity going forward. And of course, as you mentioned, that the renewable is now leading the growth on the supply side, and in particular the PV. So renewable output will grow by the rate of 1,000 terawatt-hours per year, and the solar will contribute around 60% of that. And nuclear is also growing. So as a result, renewable and the nuclear, those are low carbon energy source, will supply around half of the global electricity generation in 2030. But we also need to bear in mind that gas-fired power generation will also grow by the rate of more than 2%, around 2.6% toward the 2030. So yes, we are seeing the very rapid growth of low carbon sources like renewables. That's good, but that's only taking care of the additional part of the electricity, the new part of the electricity demand. So the fossil fuel generation continues to maintain in order to ensure the stable supply of electricity. And that could even be more the case if data center demand will lead to even much higher electricity demand growth. So with this very important role of electricity, the growth, and as also you point out, the various kind of systemic issues with respect to the electricity security. So this is an increasing part of our agenda. So that's why the IEA decided to establish a new division, Electricity Systems and Market Division, just December last year. So, 2 months ago? And the Spanish lady, the Maria Cecilia, is the head of this new division. So she'll be working hard on this matter. And also, we'll have the IEA ministerial meeting just next week, 18th and 19th of February. I will have Mr. Shilawi there as well. But this whole event starts with a high-level dialogue on electricity security on the morning of the 18th and 19th. And we look forward to the discussion. Now, about your point, yes, we need more grid capacity, strength of grid, and also the flexibility, modernization of grid is a very important part of the systems. And the IEA has been pointing to these important issues with various reports.
And how should governments prioritize grid modernization? Because, I mean, we have seen recently different events that were maybe on the basis of lack of grid modernization.
Exactly. So as we see higher penetration of renewables, they are more distributed. So that means that we'll need to build new grids. And in fact, because of this, the bottleneck of the grid, many of the renewable projects are waiting in line to get connected, and this is becoming a serious issue. According to this electricity market report, at this moment, the 2,500 gigawatts, so 2.5 terawatts of renewable storage or various projects, data centers, they remain waiting for the grid connection. So, of course, the fundamental solution should be to build more grids, but that is not so easy. I mean, this is a huge investment, and there is some uncertainty with respect to the electricity growth. So, this analysis, in our analysis, we suggest that, of course, we need to build, but at the same time, there are some types of technologies that can accelerate the connection of those new systems by introducing more kind of a flexibility in the grid connection. So there could be ways to more innovative way of regulations, and also some new technologies to increase the flexibility of those grids and connections. So by introducing new types of technologies, we will be able to solve at least certain portion of the kind of waiting in line, so that we can accelerate those integration of new variable sources. So we hope that the governments around the world will work hard on this type of new.
So we need more electricity, we need more infrastructures, and we
Yes.
need more plugs
Yes, yes,
to access the
yes,
infrastructure.
yes.
So you talk a lot about electrons, but molecules are also important, and gas can play an important role for energy security, no? What is the role of LNG, what is the role of gas in achieving energy security? Is it going to become more central to global gas markets?
Yes, I fully agree that the molecules are very important. And even though we talk about the rapid growth of electricity, but at the same time, we are continuing to see growth in oil, even though a bit slower, but still growing, and the natural gas will grow. And even coal has not come to decline. Just 2025, we saw the world record of coal consumption. So, but natural gas is the cleanest and the least carbon-intensive fuel. So the role is very important. And we are seeing the good news is that we are seeing the growth in global LNG liquefaction capacity. Just last year, 2025, we saw the global LNG production capacity increase by 7%. And so this the most of the growth actually happened in the second half of the last year, and this is led by U.S. So just last year, more than 90 BCM of the projects were FID'd in the world, and actually 80 BCM of them were in the United States alone. So this is led by the U.S., and this hopefully will lead to the well-supplied market toward 2030.
Okay. So you used to say that gas was a bridge energy, no? But it's a long, long bridge. As far
I would
as
say that this
understand.
bridge will be very long.
Very long.
Yeah.
Good. There is another thing that has been highlighted by the Secretary General of IEF, who is the need for energy in many places of the world. So access to energy is becoming extremely important, and we saw the difference between the developed countries and the less developed countries, no? How can energy access and security be prioritized in developing regions? How can developed countries support the access to energy of the emerging countries?
Yes. So the IEA has been working on this energy access issues, both in terms of electricity access to the electricity, but also access to clean cooking.
Yeah.
And this clean cooking is a big problem, in particular for the African countries, but also some parts of the developing Asian countries as well. So the IEA has organized the Clean Cooking Summit. I think that was it 2 years ago? In Paris, which collected quite many attentions and has been successful in fundraising for some of the kind of projects for improve the access. And we consider that all fields need to be mobilized.
Nice.
Because when we look at the case in India, for instance, they have been quite successful in spreading the clean cooking infrastructure by the use of LPG, which is a very important part. Of course, LPG is a fossil fuel, but it's a lot cleaner than those the traditional biomass.
And it saves lives.
Yes, exactly. So this clean cooking is not only the energy issues, but the more about the fundamental rights of people, in particular for women. So we consider that this continues to be a very important issue for the global energy dialogue. So that's why, as I said, we'll be having the ministerial meeting next week. And one of the other side event is on this, the clean cooking and access. And we hope that this will raise further kind of interest and attention to this important topic so that there will be more resources for the solution of this.
I'm very happy to hear that both IEF and IEA are pushing that. And let me give you two figures. I mean, the whole sub-Sahara countries, I mean, they have the same power generation capacity as Germany. So all these people down there, same power generation as in Germany. And the other figure that we heard last week in the IEF meeting is that 85% of the energy goes to only 45% of the people. So that shows a big imbalance. And here I think in the West, in the North part, in Europe, we tend to forget that. We believe that energy access is granted, and it's not granted. So I really am happy to hear that you are both pushing on that direction. So now let me turn to Luis Cabra. Luis Cabra represents Fuels Europe, and if I see the latest declarations of Fuels Europe, you are calling for an integrated fuel strategy, treating road, aviation, and maritime transport separately makes that you ignore the realities of co-production. So you are pushing for this integrated fuel strategy. You are supporting the development of renewable and low-carbon fuels. And you are demanding that technology neutrality must be preserved and that regulation must be better synchronized with technological development. I would say that, I mean, technology develops quite fast, regulation develops quite slow. So having said that, these are your public announcements as Fuels Europe. Let me ask you again 3 questions. The first one is about this integrated fuel strategy and the European Union regulation. You call recently for this integrated approach that will reflect the co-production strategy. So my question is, what be the specific regulatory changes that will speed up the deployment of renewable and low-carbon fuels?
Okay,
what should we ask the regulators?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ivan. And yeah, today I'm speaking on behalf of Fuels Europe. My full-time job is in Repsol. And I'm very fortunate that the views of Repsol and Fuels Europe are very coincident. Otherwise, I had some problems with my health. But really, it's a very good alignment. I have to say that we have a common view within the European refining business about what is going on in Europe and what should be done. Now, the conversation starts to be quite different from what we heard from Keisuke, because just position yourself in Europe. And Europe is a bubble within the world with quite different views about what is the priorities, the decarbonization, till now much more than other elements, because we were given that we would have cheap energy, secure energy forever. So probably this is the first reflection. But let's go to your question, because we have a big issue in regulation related to this lack of integrated view or this way of putting regulation in silos. Basically, we are speaking now mainly about mobility, transportation. This is an industrial ecosystem in which on one side we have the energy suppliers, electrons and molecules for mobility. Now 97% is molecules, and now see how things will evolve in the future. And on the other side, we have other industries like automotive, airlines, aviation manufacturers, etc. And everything is very much interrelated. The problem with the European regulation is that they have developed regulation in silos. One regulation for road transport, different regulation for aviation, different regulation for shipping. Some of them, on top of that, are transversal and cross-cutting, and then we end up with a package of regulation that has a lot of redundancies, a lot of conflicting clauses between one regulation and the other, and we need to sort that out. And that's why we say, okay, I'm a chemical engineer, so I like speaking about engineering and about chemistry and so on. And when speaking the refining business, the fuel manufacturing business to the regulator, we say, okay, this is a matter of chemistry and economics. A refinery process today oil, we need more hydrogen, and hydrogen is coming from natural gas. So this is the source of carbon and hydrogen that we use in a refinery, and the refinery co-produces the whole range of fuels. We do not produce in a different facility a fuel for aviation and a fuel for road. Yes, we produce everything in the same factory, I would say, in the same plants. And at the same time, we co-produce feedstock for chemicals. 50% of the feedstock for chemicals in Europe are coming from refineries. We produce asphalts, lube oils, etc. And this is how our refining makes business and make that an economic activity that provides sufficient returns. It's a matter of scale, big size, and also of co-production. So basically, we need to sort that out. I mean, you cannot have a regulation like we have today in Europe, in which they say, okay, aviation, because there is no electrification possible, you need to produce SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. For road, because they decide that electric vehicle is the single solution, they say that from 2035 on, no combustion engine can be sold in cars in the European Union. So no fuel can be sold in the new car fleet in the European Union. And at the same time, you are saying, okay, but you need to produce, and there is a regulation, which is the Renewable Energy Directive, saying, okay, but a certain percentage of what you are producing of fuels for transport need to be renewable. And if you look at the demanding percentages of renewable material in your feed, you need to have the road transport market. Yes. Otherwise, you will not be able to reach that situation. So, no reason, from the point of view of fuels manufacturer, it's a tremendous mistake to ban the combustion engine in 2035. There is no single reason for that, because we can produce renewable fuels, and an internal combustion engine running on 100% renewable fuel is a zero-emission vehicle if you measure the emissions as you should. It's not just in the tailpipe, it's in the whole process of producing the energy for mobility, producing the cars, etc., and using the whole thing. So this is what we are advocating for.
And are you being listened?
With limited success for the time being, but definitely, let me add a little bit more about this industrial ecosystem. Now look at the automotive industry. They are in a huge problem with the banning of the internal combustion engine. Let me say, I will speak about my opinion about what is going on in the automotive industry. They are in a very, very big crisis. They were forced by regulation to invest just in the electric vehicle. They have spent billions in renewing the value chain and the production chain to produce electric vehicles. Billions, 250 billion or so. And now, in 2025, the regulation, via these CO2 reduction limits in the tailpipe and so on, is mandating that a certain percentage of the sales, indirectly, a certain percentage of the sales are electric vehicles. And the consumer is not yet ready to buy these electric vehicles. And they are being punished, and they are having to pay penalties because of the regulation, because they are not selling the cars that the consumer do not like yet to buy. So this is an absolutely crazy situation. And this is now, the automotive industry have said many times, the electric vehicle is not our choice, is the decision of the regulator. They have gone to invest, and invest a lot, because of the regulation. The electric vehicle is a fantastic solution, but you cannot desynchronize regulation from technology evolution and consumer demand and consumer choices. Otherwise, you get into that trouble. So the solution is very clear. Do not ban the internal combustion engine in 2035. You can maintain your decarbonization objectives. You may have heard some, for those that like to read the papers about this issue. Some months ago, they said, okay, we have won the battle, the defenders of the internal combustion engine, because the European Commission has done a first step into the direction of prolonging the life of internal combustion engine in a way which is absolutely ridiculous. Let me say that frankly speaking, they have said, okay, because in their mind they don't like to change. They want to continue pushing just for the electric vehicle. So they have said, okay, in 2035 you will be allowed still to sell some combustion engines. I still qualify the regulation will still qualify the combustion engines as emitters of CO2. So you can use combustion engines, you can use these engines with conventional fuels, and instead of reducing your emissions 100% in the tailpipe, you may keep some 10%. But because you are emitting more, because the combustion engine emits more, you need to compensate. And you need to compensate using green steel, 7% of the emissions compensated by green steel, and 3% renewable fuels. This is ridiculous. I mean, the internal combustion engine can be decarbonized, can be made zero emissions, and this is what we are requesting in regulation. And we will, well, the proposal of the European Commission needs to go now to a, let's say, complicated political process for approval, and we will continue advocating for what we believe is good for the automotive industry, good for the refining industry, and good for the consumer. So.
Wow. Yes.
That's an excellent point. These are excellent points, but I would like to add some elements in there. So first of all, for instance, in the IEA's net zero by 2050 scenario, when we look at what happens at the end of 2050, of course, electrification is a very important part of a decarbonization strategy, but electricity is around half of the final energy consumption, and the remaining half should come from some kind of fuels, and they have to be decarbonized. So we both have to take the comprehensive strategy of both electrifying end uses, but also decarbonizing various types of fuels. Because in particular, the kind of transport, long-haul transport, and the industry sectors, they are very difficult to completely electrify. So that's one point. Second, of course, if we will grow, but I think that it should be driven by the well-informed consumer choices, and also supported by the good infrastructure development. And there's a huge uncertainty with respect to that. So, so what we need to do is also consider the reducing emission from the existing fleet.
Exactly.
And for that purpose, I mean, we need to reduce the carbon intensity of various fuels needed for the transport. So that's the second point. And also, the third point is that when we consider the kind of environmental climate performance of various technologies, in the case of a transport, it needs to be evaluated from the well-to-wheel basis, not from tank to a wheel basis. And of course, the electricity generation should be decarbonized, and it is decarbonizing, but still, there are many fossil fuel elements in there. So for countries that depend highly on the fossil fuel still, on the power generation, actually EV emits CO2s while it runs. So I think that there needs to be a very comprehensive approach and a look at the entire picture as to how we should design the transition of the various technologies and end uses.
I'm very happy to hear this very balanced view from the IEA, so this is good news. So, but Luis, you mentioned one thing, who is the need for smart regulation, the need for simplicity in regulation. And that has been one of the main points of the last Draghi report, that unfortunately is a great diagnosis, but is not being implemented, or is being implemented very slowly. But another thing that came out of that Draghi report was the need to achieve industrial competitiveness, to reindustrialize Europe. And one important part of the European industry is the refining industry. And the refining industry has been suffering. I mean, since 2009, 35 refineries have closed in Europe, and we have increased the import of fuels from other places of the world, because at the end of the day, as we saw in the IEA report, demand is growing. So either we produce here or we produce elsewhere, we are going to need those molecules in our system. So my question will be, what specific measures will prevent further closures of the of refineries in Europe, and how we can catalyze investments in biofuels, e-fuels, and hydrogen without raising cost, which is another issue, energy affordability.
Well, when I
Long question.
when I heard the last part of the question, you have put the impossible answer, because decarbonized energy will be more expensive than non-decarbonized energy for many years to come, and we can later elaborate about that. But let's go to the refining industry, because you are very right. We are in a difficult situation. It's not different from other industries, heavy emitting industry or heavy industries in Europe. Closures of refineries, increased imports. We are net importers of jet fuel, gas oil in Europe. So at the end of the day, closure of refineries is nothing, I would say, dramatic if that follows the demand. The problem is that we are closing refineries because of lack of competitiveness as compared to producers in other parts of the world. So now, which is the reason for that? I would say that there are some of the reasons are quite common to other industries in Europe. High prices of energy, and we are producers of hydrocarbons, and we still remind how difficult it is to produce hydrocarbons in Europe. Definitely, Europe is not going to be hydrocarbon non-dependent or independent, but we can produce hydrocarbons. It's difficult to produce hydrocarbons in the North Sea if regulation is calling for 80% taxes. Very difficult. If you have big reserves of gas in Cyprus, offshore, this is Europe. And we do not see the push for, okay, let's help to exploit these resources of gas that requires investment, et cetera, and not depending so much on imports of LNG. Europe has renounced, since many years ago, to push for having production of hydrocarbons. This is a fact, and this has contributed to the high prices of energy, apart from the problems related to the cost of electricity, the charges of electricity, and how to manage an industry that needs electricity at lower price.
So decisions have implications.
Yeah, absolutely. Past decisions have implications today and for tomorrow. And second, on top of the energy cost, we add the CO2 cost. Europe cannot pay 100 euros per ton of CO2 emitted. This cannot be sustained by the European industry for the simple reason, even if the consumer would like to pay that, we are competing with products that are not paying 100 euros per ton of CO2. So we need to be realistic. In the past, the so-called European emissions trading system worked for the reason it was designed for, that was promoting energy efficiency and improving energy efficiency. It's not anymore like that. Now it's a tax. It's a tax to industry, and it's increasing the cost of the industry while not promoting energy efficiency in the industry that pays for that, and then we are lacking competitiveness. So these type of things are common to all industries in Europe. Not to speak about complexity of the regulation, permitting procedures, et cetera, that is all these builds on costs. But there are also some problems which are specific to the refining industry. Number one, and I have to say very clear, Europe or the European regulation is demonizing refining because it's fossil fuel producer. European taxonomy, the complicated definitions of do not significantly harm. Everything you do in a refinery is wrong, even if it's good, energy efficiency, for instance, because you are harming the environment because you are producing fossil fuels. This is crazy. I mean, there is no way that we can work under these conditions. And we are speaking very clear. Oil and gas will be, you said that, will be needed for many years to, and oil products will be needed for many years to come. So there is no single reason to demonize this activity. Let me give maybe one that we are especially concerned about now. I believe we had the opportunity to speak last evening over the dinner on that, the methane regulation. 2024, a regulation was put in place that all imports of oil and gas in Europe need to comply with very strict certification procedures, demonstrated that your methane emissions along the whole value chain, since you produce the hydrocarbon till it reaches the European Union, complies with certain complicated rules. There are some independent studies that show that more than 40% of the European gas imports and more than 80% of the oil imports in Europe will not be compliant of this regulation when it starts to be applied as soon as in 2027. It will be a mess, because theoretically all this oil and gas will escape from Europe to other markets, or they would we would like to pay.
Imagine the consequence in security of supply.
Absolutely. So we hope and we expect and we are confident that we are having this conversation, very difficult conversation, but that this needs to be sorted out. So all this is making refining difficult to compete with the production of refineries in other parts of the world. We need to correct all that, and then we will be in a position to invest in the transformation, progressively substituting the oil products, but the renewable fuels and so on. And there is still a lot of things that can be improved in regulation in order to make, in the future, renewable fuels an economically sound production in Europe. The start is not so good. We are now, for instance, for aviation, the new legislation in place requires 2%, just 2% of sustainable aviation fuel in the mix of jet fuel in Europe, just 2%. We are already importing SAF in Europe, produced elsewhere. Repsol is producing SAF in Cartagena refinery, others, Neste and others are doing that, but again, producing SAF today is more competitive than producing SAF in Europe, because investors have the threat that, okay, you put a co-production plant in place in your refineries, you co-produce gas oil, you produce the SAF, but in 2035 your gas oil will be useless because the combustion engine will be forbidden. So all this needs to be corrected. Of course, the job and the task of Fuels Europe is to be very persistent and patient, and well, we said maybe less prudent, and we need to be a little bit more outspoken because all these things need to be sorted out.
I was going to ask you at the end a question about whether both of you felt optimistic and pessimistic, but I may know the answer already.
No, I'm quite optimistic.
We'll talk about that. Last question for you before we enter in a debate. Technology. You are a technology person. And in the last meeting with IEF, there was a big discussion around the need to be technology agnostic. And you are also been talking recently about the technological neutrality. And this is a controversial word, no? So, I mean, in a transition that has been, I would say, driven very much by regulation, how we should go into a transition that is more driven by technology, and how we can be, I mean, inclusive in all sorts of technologies. Why that is important?
Well, it's, I believe it's common sense. I mean, at the end, technology neutrality means leave all options open. All the options should be more or less incentivized. I'm speaking about decarbonization option, providing energy which is secure, affordable, and decarbonized, and leave, let's say, the entrepreneurs to invest on that, and let's see in the future which is going to be the solution that can be more successful or can complement each other for different niches of the market. So it's really common sense. The problem is when the regulator intends to occupy a space that should be left to the engineers, to the private investment, and to the consumer. This is what the regulator is doing in Europe when they say, we want to impose a single solution, which is electric vehicle, and we are saying you which is the pace, the speed in which you need to introduce all this, forgetting about technology evolution and forgetting about consumer choice. So I believe it's common sense. I believe the decisions in regulation need to be less ideological, less biased, and decarbonization is difficult, and reaching something near net zero in 2050 is every year more difficult. Maintaining a global warming limit of 1.5 degrees C is seen now almost impossible. So let's put all technology options and all solutions in place and push for that.
Good. I was reading the many questions that are arriving, so I think that we are going to have time to talk until lunchtime. But now let's start the dialogue. Let's start, and I would like to have a dialogue on 3 topics. The first one is something that we have been already talking, but I would like to, and views have been changing in the last months, no? But it's about decarbonization and how to achieve decarbonization with the lowest social cost, no? With one of the main implications. But until very recently, IEA was pointing to a rapid renewable development. You were pushing for more renewable energy, and you were talking about, or IEA was talking about the need to phase down fossil fuels, no? Although you mentioned specific comments before that I think could add a lot to the debate. And Fuels Europe has been thinking always about a long life demand for liquid fuels, especially in hard-to-abate sectors. There are sectors that will require liquid fuels anyhow. And you have been advocating at the same time for renewable and synthetic fuels. No? So these are the 2 starting positions of both of you, of both of your organization. So I have different questions, no? But the first one is, how should Europe balance electrification on the one side with scaling up sustainable liquid fuels through 2035? How we should decarbonize without or with the lowest social cost? Who starts?
I fully agree to the previous statement by Luis, and I think that what is important is technology neutral, or in the typical IEA's words, all fuels, all technology approach to decarbonization. And we need to, what is important is to reduce emissions. And in order for the purpose, we don't have any luxury of being choosy about which technology we like or we don't. So we need to use whatever low carbon options that we can take. And I think that's fundamentally a very important types of approach. So for that purpose, we should not, of course, we should not forget the energy efficiency first. So reducing the existing systems of the emissions by increasing the energy efficiency performance, that's very important. And renewables is important. And of course, we often look at what's happening in the electricity generation, like solar PV and wind turbines, but we should not forget the sustainable fuel part. And the IEA last year worked hard on this sustainable fuel issues. And in the COP30 last year in Brazil, we presented the report on that, and they suggested the quadrupling target of sustainable fuels toward the 2035. That's not easy, we are aware, but we should do our best to increase these types of the various diverse low carbon technologies. So I think that they both are important, electrification, but also the improving the efficiency and also decarbonizing the kind of liquid fuels, whatever fuels. So we have to do whatever we can. Yeah. But at the same time, and so we do whatever, we do our best to reduce emissions, but also we have to be prepared against this uncertainty as to the speed of actual energy transitions. And we need specific technologies to achieve it. So in that respect, so this kind of preparedness against this uncertainty with respect to the speed of transitions, that's also a very important part. And so in that respect, kind of taking right sequence of investments and the policies, that's also a very important part of securing energy security during the whole process of transitions.
Luis, do you agree? Do you differ?
No, I would take the study of the EIA on, and it's true, it's very interesting and very detailed technically, demonstrated how potentially you can multiply by 4 the production of sustainable fuel as soon as in 2035, which is not that far in time. Which is good is to see which are the conditions under which this scenario is developed. And again, I go back to Europe and say, but if we do things like the regulator would like to do in Europe in terms of sustainable fuels, I will not reach the ×4. I would reach much less. Because the regulation, in the mind of some of the regulators is, no, we don't really like sustainable fuels. We like more electrification. So everything transpires in the regulation, barriers and limits for the sustainable fuels to develop. Some examples, and again, I'm optimistic because I believe we need to change that, and it can be changed. It just needs political determination. You see the value chain of sustainable fuels, feedstocks. We need more feedstock. It's not unlimited volume of feedstock. This is basically the main bottleneck to develop sustainable fuels. So we need to make the most of the existing potential feedstock available. And now you look at the Renewable Energy Directive of the European Union with a list of complicated requirements about which are the feedstocks that are really sustainable, really applicable, and so on. And they say first generation biofuels, no, zero in the future, in the very near future. They say energy crops, I don't like it. Maybe you are going to occupy the land. Occupy the land in Europe when farmers are just abandoning the fields? I mean, we need to be...
Well, we saw yesterday the big demonstration in Madrid.
They were here. So everything transpires limitations. Use cooking oil, animal fats, this all... okay, but no more than 1.7%.
1.7?
We may have more, yeah, but it may be not sustainable. Maybe this would promote unsustainable practices somewhere else in the world. I mean, this is not the way we need to go to multiply by 4 the production of sustainable fuels in 2034. So we need better regulation, more flexibility, less preventive preemptions, conditions, certifications. We need to do that much simpler if the real problem is abating emissions of CO2, because we have a huge problem in the planet with global warming. This is the trade-off. If global warming is the existential problem, then other problems should be second priority. Okay, we need to still maintain sustainability and so on.
So at the end of the day, the important thing is to decarbonize. And you can decarbonize by electrifying in certain cases, or you can decarbonize by introducing e-fuels or renewable and low carbon fuels.
Exactly.
No? You need
exactly. And by the way, by 2035, a significant part of this ×4 is for road transport, because this is the lead market. This is the market that we have today. So this is what, and maybe one more comment on that, because you mentioned e-fuels and synthetic fuels. This is a big promise. This is a very expensive proposition today. Repsol has invested 200 million just in a demonstration plant that will be producing, let's say, second half of this year, and is in Bilbao to produce just 2,000 tons a year of e-fuels, and that costs 200 million euros. This cannot be scaled up to industrial size today, because why we are doing that? Because we want to make the technology to evolve, to make it cheaper, to learn more, and eventually, maybe by 2035, we will have, and we will start having significant volumes of e-SAF, e-fuels, and so on. But the European Union has the synchronized technology evolution from regulation, and it's now asking the airlines to put, I don't know, it's a tiny 1% or 1.2% of e-fuels in 2030 in the planes, in the travels of the European Union. There will be not e-fuels in 2030 for that. As simple as that. And now the airlines are asking who is the supplier of this, and the European Union is putting a lot of money on trying to push some projects of e-SAF to 2030. We are in 2026, so 4 years, nothing to do with a development which is meaningful size.
We are going to continue to the dialogue, but there are so many questions, and some of them are pertinent in this moment, so I will ask those questions from the audience. No? There are two questions for Keisuke. One is, what's the impact of artificial intelligence in increase and its massive use of electricity on global and local markets? Are projections having it into account? The second question, also related with electrification, is electrification growth expected all over the world or mainly on developed countries?
So as for the first question, yes, the data centers, AI, driven by AI, that is having a huge impact. And we're already seeing the electricity consumption growth in places like the United States already. And so the big question is how fast it will grow. And in our report, there are many reports, and the outlook is highly uncertain. But one of the projections from the IEA's AI and energy report, and also the electricity market report, is that the data center demand, driven by AI, that would double toward the 2030. So this is a substantial growth in electricity, and unless this is met by low carbon sources, that will lead to the higher emissions. And of course, there's another element of AI which possibly enhance more efficient use of the energy in various sectors by adopting the solutions using AI. So this is a kind of a positive contributing part, but it's really hard to see which effect will be larger. Yes. And in particular, I would like to note that electricity demand growth from the data centers, AI, is fairly uncertain. I mean, to what degree, I don't know, but it will surely grow because the AI data centers consumes massive amount of energy. They're trying their best to enhance the efficiency, but still, there's a massive demand growth. So in that respect, yes, we have taken that into considerations, but there's somewhat kind of uncertain elements in our projections for this data centers demand. What was the second question?
The second question was about whether electrification was something for developed countries or underdeveloped countries.
I would say that probably that would happen in both, and but in the developing countries, before talking about the electrification of various existing uses, there is new demand for electricity. In particular, as I said, that there is a very low level of penetration of air conditioners in Southeast Asia, South Asia, or the African countries. And with their economic growth and population growth, there is no doubt that the air conditioner use will rapidly expand. And we produced the global cooling report. And in there, we points out that efficiency improvements of those air conditioners are the crucial factors in how we can control the level of growth in electricity demand. If they can introduce the most advanced technologies, like those used in the advanced economies like Japan or Europe, then they would somehow be able to control the rapid expansion, but explosive growth. But so yes, so all in all, electricity demand, we are seeing finally the advanced economies are increasing electricity consumption, but the vast majority of electricity demand will come from emerging economies with their population and
There were
economic growth.
two questions for Luis, and as expected, they are related with the regulation. And one of them fits very well because you were mentioning this big project on e-fuels in the north of Spain, in Bilbao. And the question is, what public support, regulatory, financing, risk management is needed for first-in-kind project like the one in Bilbao?
Okay, let's me first reflect a little bit about the first-of-a-kind project. For instance, we have gone in Cartagena refinery, and the plant is already producing. It was a first-of-a-kind project to produce renewable fuels, SAF and HVO, from residual oils. Still the most mature technology in the field of second generation or advanced biofuels is really a first of a kind. And we are suffering a little bit. I'm looking at Thomas, that is the owner of the plant, and we are suffering a lot in technology terms, in operational terms, to make that work properly and optimized. So this is first of a kind, and we were able to get aids from the financing from the European Investment Bank and so on. There are things in the regulation and in the institutions of the European Union that work quite well. And now we are moving into an ecoplanta in Tarragona, which is going to produce biomethanol from municipal waste. This is really first of a kind. We've got innovation funds from the European Union, more than 100 million out of the 800 million that the plant will cost in terms of capex. So all this is going on, and there are aids in place. But let's go to the point in which I would say, do not be too much supporting what is today at very early stage. I read yesterday, it's a piece of regulation of the European Union, is targeting promotion of eSAF. It's so interesting. They are saying, okay, because the airlines are supposed to be paying CO2 costs under the second wave of ETS, and the airliners will pay for that. And they say, okay, if you buy eSAF, there is no single molecule of eSAF today. If you buy eSAF, you will get a deduction on the ETS cost, on the CO2 cost, and they say, okay, that's a very good idea. Which is the deduction? It's equivalent to 3,500 euros per ton of CO2, which is saved with this eSAF. 3,500 euros per ton. This is ridiculous, ridiculously high. And this reflects that there is no single molecule of eSAF. Technology is not there, it's not mature. You need to invest and promote research, development, and deployment, and not market deployment today. That's the idea. Let's promote all the new ideas. There is a level of promotion at the level of research, development, first of a kind, etc. This is a different story. But please, in regulation, make calculations on which is the cost of that. How much, if the target is decarbonizing, which is the cost per ton of CO2 that you are abating, with this public money.
So we need to decarbonize with the lowest social cost, but also with the most cost-efficient
Exactly.
technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a very specific question, but I think it's relevant, who is about, talking about regulation, the person is asking, could you please give some comments on the pros and cons about the European Union directive for all European Union ports to be green ports by 2030?
Wow.
I don't know if it's too specific, but...
Yeah, it's too complicated for me. I do not have the detailed knowledge on this green ports regulation. So I need to recognize my ignorance on this point.
Well, good. So let's go into the second part of the dialogue. And the second part of the dialogue is about something that, I mean, was already brought by Dr. Yassin when he presented the different scenarios. And we saw that in case of population growth, the difference is very small. We all agree that we are going to grow in population in the world. But in terms of demand scenarios, I mean, there is a huge range, from the very optimistic or pessimistic scenarios, and the size of the difference is more or less the amount of the demand we have now, So this is really, although thanks to IEF for providing the median scenario, that at least give a little bit of more clarity, But, I mean, in recent years, and there has been a lot of public debate, IEF scenarios have generated controversy, especially the net zero scenario due to its implication in investments. Turning investments in hydrocarbon as potentially stranded assets, And also, IEF has mentioned several times that we need to invest, but only in investment to address the decline, but not to expand the future. That was the traditional, and there has been a huge amount of debate. So, Sadamori, I mean, can you clarify the IES scenarios and comment also on the addition of alternative scenarios like the CPS that you have recently added into your range of scenarios or pathways? I don't know whether it's a scenario or is a pathway, but...
Okay. Yeah, that's a big question. And yes, so IEF shows the very wide range of various scenarios. But I think that what is important that we need to bear in mind is that we also need to look at the kind of the intended uses, purposes of those scenarios. And so, for instance, in the case of IEA, we last year's we reintroduced the CPS, current policy scenario, and also we have this stated energy policy scenario. Those are the projections that shows the kind of a level, depending on the level of government, the policy strength, the energy demand would look like this. On the other hand, net zero is entirely different. That's a backcasting scenario that shows what is needed to achieve net zero by 2050. So so it doesn't show what is likely to happen. So that's what we need to bear in mind. Now, you ask about this upstream investment versus net zero emission scenario. I think I would like to clarify that the message in the net zero roadmap, original one in 2021, was that if the world were to decrease the fossil fuel consumptions along the net zero by 2050 line, then mathematically there would be no need for new approvals of the upstream the projects. But in order for that to happen, because world is emitting currently 38 gigatons of CO2, and 2050 is only 24 years away. So that means that we'll need to see 2 or 3 gigatons of the emissions reducing every year. We actually saw that happen in 2020, in the year of the COVID-19.
Are you suggesting that we need more COVID?
No. It's a lot more serious.
Yes.
In that year, 2 gigaton of CO2 was reduced, and then next year, it went back by the same 2 gigatons. What I mean is that, what I'm saying is that, I'm not saying that we would need to suffer the 2020 situation for the coming 24 years. No, that's too easy. The level of deterioration of economic activity must double in the second year, then triple in the following year, and it all comes down to 2050. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we can express this dire difficulty of achieving net zero if we only take a look at this, the CO2 emissions. So that's the net zero emission line, falling rapidly toward 2050. But the world is not at all on that track. So that means that we will continue to need, if we only look at the kind of demand side, we will continue to need more oil and gas. And so that means that upstream investments will definitely be necessary. And in addition to that, even if we do not see any increase of consumption at all, as the IEA's report on the declining rate report last year, around 90% of the oil and gas upstream investments are only for staying still. I mean, to fight against the kind of a declining, 90% of all those resources are used.
Yeah.
So
you are going to be in a plateau.
yeah, so exactly. So that means that we will continue to need. I mean, so that's the relationship between the net zero line and the oil and gas upstream investments.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarifications. I think it was needed because there has been such a controversy that I really like the way you have expressed that figures.
Yeah,
but
and,
back to Luis. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
You come from the industry. What
And,
is your opinion?
What is, I fully understand which is the difference between scenarios and projections.
Yes.
And this is what you're specifically explaining about the net zero scenario of the International Energy Agency. The problem comes when someone takes a scenario and says this is the way forward and try to impose that to industry. This is exactly what happened in the European Union. We are closing this year the so-called integrated management report of the company, financial account and non-financial information incorporating a very thick report on sustainability. It's very thick because the requirements of the so-called Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. This directive, on top of being too complicated and we need to put something like 120 pages to explain our sustainability activity for the company, goes beyond that. And we are pushed to demonstrate whether or not we are consistent with a world which is 1.5 degrees C maximum. If I do not demonstrate that, well, it's up to me, but I will be blamed. And the taxonomy of the European Union would say that you should not be financed by sustainable finance, etc., etc., etc. So the problem is when someone takes scenarios, they put that as a policy, and then they try to impose company strategies. So, well, you said, okay, which is the scenario we believe in, and now I will take my hat of Fuels Europe out and put the one in Repsol. I can tell you what Repsol is doing. We look at the scenarios and say, okay, we see which is the strategy we need for our company with all this uncertainty, and we take decisions. And decision in Repsol is that we are going to continue producing hydrocarbons, but we are not going to be obsessed about increasing the production of hydrocarbons. In fact, our projections show that we will maintain our production flat within then, say, from here to 2035 or so. We are obsessed about getting better barrels. Better barrels mean more dollars per barrel and lower CO2 per barrel, and this is the investment that we are going to put in order to develop the best resources and reserves, etc. And we said, okay, but our company would like to grow. And then we are going to grow through investing in renewable electricity generation. We started that activity in 2018, and now we are producing, we have the capacity of more than 5 gigawatts of hydro, wind, and solar in Spain and in the United States. And now we are retailers of everything. Oil products, gas, renewable fuels, electricity, renewable electricity, this idea of being multi-energy, and this is the way that we believe that we will have some growth engines and at the same time some significant cash contributors coming from upstream and refining in some way to finance the growth in the other newer businesses. So.
But one thing I think is clear is that we should not blame IES scenarios. They are right. We should blame the bad use of those scenarios that you both agreed. Okay, final question, because they are sending me messages that we should close, although I'm enjoying the conversation with both of you. So I will ask a final question. No? And the final question is, consider everything we discussed today. What will be, for each of you, the biggest challenges in the energy arena? I mean, the title of this seminar was something like that, a global energy challenge. So what will be the biggest challenges that we are going to face? 3 words.
If we are to put that in 3 words, maybe what comes to my mind is my boss, Dr. Fatih Birol, used in the Global Energy Security Conference in London last year. And so he put forward the concept of the need for diversity, predictability, and cooperation. And those are the kind of golden rules for the energy security. But these elements are really kind of difficult to achieve, actually. But I think that those are something that we need to pursue if we are to have explore the secure supply of all energy sources.
Good. Luis, your 3
well,
words.
I now put again the hat of Fuels Europe. For Fuels Europe, the challenge is, and this is not just words, we need to engage in an organized dialogue with the European Commission on the future of refining. This is starting now. The first meeting has been in the 10th of February, and the DG Energy of the European Commission seems to be committed to start this structured dialogue, because we need to speak about this and convince them that with enabling regulation, technology evolution will get investments in the future of the refineries and decarbonizing through renewable fuels. So this strategic dialogue is absolutely required. And I'm optimistic, and maybe we are starting that.
Good. So we talk about diversity, predictability, dialogue. Dialogue refers to IEF. You said you're optimistic. Keisuke Sadamori, you're optimistic?
I would say maybe cautiously
optimistic. Yeah. That's a very good way to end up this session. Thank you very much to both of you. It has been very good. And now I give the floor to Pedro Miras, the chairman of the WPC Energy, to make the closure.
Buenos días. Good morning to everyone. Now it's time for summarize what we have heard today. This is not easy, because we have heard so many inspiring ideas that it's not easy. But first of all, let me say thank you first to Repsol for hosting and sponsoring this amazing couple of panels. And not only the panels, but also the meetings that we have had during the last days here in Madrid. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for us, and thank you. We are very grateful for this. Not only this, but also for Club Español de la Energía, that has been organizing all these things. Not easy. We know how difficult it is to organize those things. Of course, the members of the Executive Committee of WPC Energy, Program Committee, and the Secretariat that has been working very hard to have this important event. And of course, to our speakers. Thank you, Yasin, Keiske, and also Luis, and the rest of Angela and Cristina, of course. Has been an amazing couple of panels. Well, summarize is very difficult, many things, but I'm very pleased that I'm thinking that we are starting to listen a different message that we have been listening in the last years, and this is good. A couple of ideas. First is that energy consumption is going to continue growing. This is something that even in those important differences between projections, it's clear, because the population is growing. And only if we have a relationship between the population that is going to grow in the next years and the consumption per capita, it's clear that the energy is going to be much more needed. If we have a relationship with the population and the consumption per capita, that means that around 30% of energy is going to be needed in the future. That is a huge amount of energy. Another idea is that, well, it's interesting, we have listened that breakdown and the basket of energy nowadays, 80%, 82% exactly, it is either oil, gas, or coal. Exactly, very similar to the numbers that we had in 1972 when the IEA was created. So, many things are changing. And in addition, we have more than 600 million people that have no access to modern energy. And we have a responsibility. We have to energize those people. So this is, I would say, the framework, what we need in order to face those things. We have heard many things. Now, first, we need a secure, affordable, and sustainable energy. The famous trilemma, I don't like this word, trilemma. It's using a lot, but it's tricky. Because trilemma means that we have to choose one or two of the three pillars. And this is not the case. We cannot say that sustainability, as we have heard in the past, is the only important thing. And now we cannot face another moment in which security of supply or affordability is going to be much more important than sustainability. I don't like trilemma. I like to see that the three pillars are exactly important each other. How to do this? We have heard many things, no? I think the summary would be what we have to do is to innovate, to use technology in order to solve the problems and try to energize those people all over the world. But it's very simple, just to invest, just to have more technology. But for this, we need a couple of things that we have heard many times today here. First is a good regulatory framework. I have been a regulator for 12 years in my life. I know very well how difficult it is to regulate. But it's important to listen to the companies. Companies need stability in regulation, not complicated systems in which makes very difficult to take decisions, investments. It's important to have a good regulatory framework and not to confuse goals with paths. We have heard many times here. And it's incredible because in the past, European Union was able to do this. I remember when the European Union years ago decided or put goals in the reduction of sulfur in the diesel. They say all the companies have to reduce the sulfur in the next years, but they never said what was the path to go there. This is what they have to do. They have to put goals. Please reduce emissions or whatever, and lead the companies to compete using technology. Not to say, as we want to reduce, this is the only way in which you have to invest. This is very important. No? Second is legal stability. Probably this is not so important in this part of the world, but it's very important in other parts. When companies go to invest, needs to be sure that the terms of their contracts are going to be respected in everywhere. I insist, probably it is not the case here, that can be the case in other parts of the world. And as I have heard many times to the CEO of this company, just only math, less ideology, more technology. But for this, we need this kind of framework. So we have a responsibility. We have to energize the world. We have to hold all these people that need energy, modern kind of energies, Not everywhere is like the downtown in Madrid. The world is very diverse, and many people need to access energy. And we have to do the things in a different way. If the target is to reduce CO2 emissions, then we say that we are not doing a good job. Emissions are growing, now it's 38 gigatons. In the times of the first COP was 23. Of course, it has not increased in the same rate than the gross product in the world, but it's increasing. So we have to do the things in a different way. And the way to do this is using technology in this kind of framework. And for this, a key element is this kind of things. We have to go to the dialogue, to explain our positions, to travel all over the world, to explain that our industry is doing the things in the proper way. Don't be shy to defend your ideas. It's important to listen to everyone. And for this, institutions like IEF, IEA, well, WPC Energy, and others are doing a great job. Please continue attending those events, listening to those people. Don't be shy to defend your ideas. Next Congress for WPC Energy is going to be in Riyadh in a couple of months, 73 days, yeah, for you to know. And it's going to be, I would say, the most important arena to listen to all the opinions all over the world. You are all invited to be there, and we will continue doing the things in such a way, trying to deliver energy, whatever the people are, wherever they are. Thank you very much, and thank you again to Repsol, Club Español de Energía, and everyone. Thank you.